like my wife.
The elevator doors closed with that metallic whisper that always made my stomach drop, and I thought it would be just another ordinary Tuesday afternoon in downtown Chicago. But then the lights flickered, the mechanism groaned like something dying, and everything stopped, complete silence. That awful, suffocating silence where you can hear your own heartbeat drumming against your ribs. And that's when I felt it, a hand. Strong, warm, wrapping around my wrist like a vice. I turned, and there he was. This man in an expensive black suit, his dark eyes burning into mine with an intensity that made my breath catch. His voice was low, urgent, almost a whisper. I need you to do something for me. Just for a moment, act like you're my wife. Before we continue, I want to ask you something. Where are you listening to this story from right now? Are you at home, maybe in your kitchen, or perhaps you are lying in bed? And how old are you? Please leave it in the comments. I really want to know who's sharing this moment with me. My name is Sarah Mitchell, and I was 32 years old when this happened. 32 and completely alone in a world that had chewed me up and spit me out more times than I could count. I grew up in a small town in Indiana, the kind of place where everyone knows your business before you do, where the biggest excitement is the Friday night football game and the annual county fair. My mama raised me by herself after my daddy left when I was 7. Just packed his bags one morning in May, kissed the top of my head, and walked out the door. Never saw him again. Mama worked 3 jobs to keep food on the table. I remember her hands always red and raw from cleaning other people's houses, from washing dishes at the diner, from doing whatever she had to do to make sure I had shoes that fit and a coat for winter. She died when I was 24. Cancer. The kind that eats you from the inside out while you're still trying to smile and pretend everything's fine. I held her hand in that hospital room that smelled like disinfectant and death, and I watched her take her last breath on a Thursday afternoon in September. The sunlight was coming through the window, all golden and beautiful, and I remember thinking how wrong it was that something so terrible could happen on such a pretty day. After that, I moved to Chicago. I thought maybe the big city would give me a fresh start, you know? Maybe I could become someone different, someone who didn't carry all that grief around like a stone in her chest. I got a job as a receptionist at a law firm. Nothing fancy, just answering phones and scheduling appointments and making coffee for lawyers who barely looked at me. I lived in a studio apartment in a building where the heat only worked half the time, and the walls were so thin I could hear my neighbor's television at 3 in the morning. I wasn't married, never even came close. There had been a boy back in Indiana, Tommy Richards, who promised me forever when we were 18. But forever lasted about 6 months before he decided that Jenny Parker's daddy's money was more appealing than my mama's struggle. I saw them at the grocery store once, pushing a cart full of organic vegetables and fancy cheese, and I had to leave my own cart right there in the middle of aisle 4 and walk out because I couldn't breathe. So there I was, 32 and single, and living paycheck to paycheck in a city that didn't care if I lived or died. That Tuesday, October 17th, started like any other. My alarm went off at 6:15. I hit snooze twice before dragging myself out of bed. The apartment was cold. It was always cold. I took a shower in lukewarm water because the building's hot water heater was broken again, and I pulled on the same black slacks and white blouse I wore most days because my wardrobe wasn't exactly extensive. I had a meeting at the Chicago Title and Trust building that afternoon. My boss, Mr. Henderson, needed some documents delivered to a client, and since his usual courier was sick, he sent me. I remember thinking it was strange being asked to hand-deliver papers in the age of email and electronic signatures, but I didn't question it. I needed that job. I needed every single paycheck. The Chicago Title and Trust building was one of those massive downtown structures, all glass and steel and marble, the kind of place where your footsteps echo and you feel small just walking through the lobby. I signed in at the security desk, got my visitor badge, and headed to the elevators. There were 6 of them, all gleaming and modern, with digital displays and smooth panels. I pressed the button for the 19th floor. The elevator was empty when I stepped in. I was relieved. I didn't want to make small talk with strangers, didn't want to pretend to be cheerful. I just wanted to deliver the documents, get back to the office, and make it through another day. The doors started to close, and then a hand shot through, stopping them. He stepped in, tall, maybe 6'2", with black hair swept back from his forehead and these eyes, these dark, unreadable eyes that seemed to look right through you. He was wearing a suit that probably cost more than I made in 3 months, black and perfectly tailored with a white shirt and no tie. There was something about him, something that made the air feel different, heavier, dangerous. He didn't press a button. Just stood there, hands in his pockets, staring straight ahead. I pressed myself against the opposite wall, clutching the manila envelope with the documents. The elevator started moving. 8th floor, 9th, 10th. That's when it happened. A grinding sound, metal on metal, and then a violent shudder that threw me forward. I grabbed the railing and the lights went out. Emergency lights kicked in, bathing everything in this eerie red glow. The elevator stopped. Complete silence. I could hear my own breathing, fast and shallow. My heart was hammering. I'd always been terrified of elevators, of enclosed spaces, of being trapped. My hands started shaking. "It's okay," his voice cut through the silence. Deep, calm, with just a hint of an accent I couldn't quite place. "Just a power issue. They'll fix it." I nodded, even though he probably couldn't see me in the dim light. I wanted to believe him. I wanted to believe this was just a minor inconvenience and in a few minutes we'd be moving again and I'd deliver my documents and go home and forget this ever happened. But then I heard it. Voices. Outside the elevator. Muffled, urgent, and then footsteps. Running, multiple sets. The man's entire demeanor changed. His body went rigid. His hand moved to his jacket, and I saw it then, just for a second, the handle of a gun. My blood turned to ice. "Listen to me very carefully," he said, and his voice was different now, harder, commanding. He crossed the small space between us in 2 strides, and suddenly he was right there, so close I could smell his cologne, something expensive and woody. "In about 30 seconds, someone is going to get this elevator door open. When they do, you're going to do exactly what I tell you. Do you understand?" I couldn't speak, couldn't move, just stared at him with wide eyes. His hand wrapped around my wrist, and I felt that jolt, that electric shock of skin on skin. "I need you to act like my wife, just for a moment. Can you do that?" "I don't understand," I whispered. My voice sounded so small, so scared. "You don't need to understand, you just need to trust me, please." And there was something in his eyes, something desperate, something almost vulnerable that made me nod. "Okay," I breathed. He pulled me closer, his free hand coming up to cup my face. His thumb brushed my cheekbone, and I shivered. "What's your name?" "Sarah." "Sarah," he said it like a prayer. "I'm Dante, Dante Romano. Remember that?" The elevator doors shuddered. Someone was prying them open from the outside. I could see fingers gripping the edge, pulling. "Trust me," Dante whispered again. And then he kissed me. It wasn't gentle, it wasn't tender, it was desperate and claiming and fierce, his lips crushing against mine, his hand fisting in my hair. I gasped against his mouth, and he took advantage, deepening the kiss, pouring something into it that made my knees weak and my head spin. It was like drowning and being saved at the same time. The doors finally gave way, wrenching open with a screech of metal. Bright light flooded in, and voices. So many voices, all talking at once. Dante pulled back just enough to rest his forehead against mine, both of us breathing hard. "Stay with me," he murmured. "Just stay with me." I blinked, trying to focus, trying to understand what was happening. There were men in the hallway, at least 5 or 6, all in suits, all with that same dangerous edge. And there, standing in front, was an older man, maybe 60, with silver hair and cold blue eyes that swept over us with barely concealed fury. "Dante," the man said, and his voice could have cut glass. "What the hell is this?" Dante's arm wrapped around my waist, pulling me against his side. I could feel the tension in his body, coiled and ready. "Uncle Victor, I didn't expect to see you here." Clearly. And Victor's gaze shifted to me, and I felt stripped bare under that stare. "And who is this?" "This is Sarah," Dante said, his voice steady, casual, like we were at a cocktail party instead of in a broken elevator surrounded by men who looked like they knew 100 ways to kill someone. "My wife." The words hung in the air like a bomb. Victor's eyes narrowed. "Your wife?" "Yes." "Since when?" "Since 3 months ago." Dante's hand moved up and down my arm in what would have looked like an affectionate gesture to anyone watching, but I could feel the warning in it, the silent command to go along with this. We kept it quiet, private ceremony, you know how it is. A long, terrible silence. Then Victor smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "Congratulations. I had no idea you were even seeing anyone, nephew." "I like to keep my personal life personal." Apparently, Victor took a step forward, and I instinctively pressed closer to Dante. "Well, this is certainly a surprise. We were just here for a business meeting. Didn't realize you'd be here too." "Same," Dante said, "just showing Sarah the building. She's never been downtown much." Another lie, so smooth and effortless it was almost beautiful. Victor's smile widened, showing teeth. "Well, we shouldn't keep you two. I'm sure you have better things to do than stand around in a broken elevator. We'll have maintenance fix this right away." He gestured to his men. "Let's go, gentlemen." They filed out, one by one, but not before each of them gave us a long, assessing look. Victor was the last to leave, pausing at the doorway. "Dante, we should have dinner soon. I'd love to get to know your new bride better." "Of course, uncle, I'll call you." Victor nodded once, sharp and final, and then he was gone. The sound of their footsteps receded down the hallway. Dante didn't move, didn't release me. We stood there in the broken elevator, frozen, listening, waiting. After what felt like hours but was probably only 2 or 3 minutes, Dante let out a long, shaky breath. "Are they gone?" I whispered. "I think so." "What just happened? Who were those people? Who are you?" Dante finally let me go, stepping back, running a hand through his hair. In the emergency lighting, I could see his face clearly now. He was handsome, devastatingly so, but there was something hard in his features, something that spoke of a life I couldn't even imagine. "It's complicated." "You have a gun." "Yes." "And you just told those men I'm your wife." "Yes." "I'm not your wife." "I know." He looked at me, really looked at me, and I saw something flicker across his face. Regret? Guilt? "I'm sorry. I know this is insane. I know you have no reason to trust me, but I need to explain, and I can't do it here. Can you come with me? Please?" Every rational part of my brain was screaming at me to run, to get as far away from this man as possible, to call the police, to go home, to pretend this never happened. But there was something in his eyes, something that made me hesitate. He looked almost lost, almost scared, and I recognized that look because I saw it in the mirror every single day. "Okay," I heard myself say, "but you better start explaining soon." Relief washed over his face. "Thank you. Come on. Let's get out of here before someone else shows up." He took my hand and we climbed out of the elevator into the hallway. It was empty, silent, just fluorescent lights buzzing overhead and the smell of industrial carpet. Dante led me to the stairwell and we walked down 19 flights, our footsteps echoing in the concrete space. Neither of us spoke. When we finally emerged into the lobby, Dante pulled out his phone and made a quick call. Marcus, I need the car, front entrance. 5 minutes. He hung up without waiting for a response. We walked outside into the October afternoon. The sun was starting to set, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple, and the air was cool, almost cold, carrying the first real bite of autumn. People rushed past us, busy with their own lives, completely unaware that my entire world had just tilted on its axis. A black Mercedes pulled up to the curb, sleek and expensive. A man in a driver's uniform got out and opened the back door. Dante gestured for me to get in. I hesitated, looking at the car, at him, at the street full of strangers. Please, Dante said quietly. I promise I'm not going to hurt you. I just need to talk to you somewhere safe. Safe. What a strange word coming from a man with a gun. But I got in anyway. Maybe I was curious. Maybe I was stupid. Maybe I just wanted anything to break the monotony of my gray, lonely life. Dante slid in beside me, and the driver closed the door. The interior smelled like leather, and that same expensive cologne. The driver got back behind the wheel. Where to, sir? Home, Dante said. Home. His home. I was going to a stranger's home. A stranger who had kissed me like he meant it and who carried a weapon and who had just convinced a group of dangerous-looking men that I was his wife. The car pulled away from the curb, merging into traffic. I watched the buildings slide past, the people on the sidewalks, the everyday normalcy of a Tuesday evening in Chicago. Everything looked the same, but nothing would ever be the same again. I need to call my boss, I said, my voice sounding strange, in the quiet car. I was supposed to deliver documents. He'll be worried. Dante pulled out his phone and handed it to me. Go ahead. I stared at the phone, at his long fingers holding it out to me, at the silver watch on his wrist that probably cost more than my car. Then I took it and dialed the office. Henderson Law, the receptionist answered. Hi, Monica, it's Sarah. Can you put me through to Mr. Henderson? Sure. Hold on. A click, and then Mr. Henderson's gruff voice. Mitchell, where the hell are you? You were supposed to be back an hour ago. I'm sorry, sir. There was an issue with the elevator at the title building. It got stuck. I'm okay, but I'm just now getting out. I still have the documents. Should I bring them back to the office? A pause. No, forget it. It's almost 5 anyway, just bring them first thing tomorrow morning. Are you sure you're okay? Yes, sir. I'm fine. All right. See you tomorrow. He hung up. I handed the phone back to Dante. He nodded, slipping it back into his pocket. We sat in silence for a while, the only sound the engine's quiet hum and the muffled noise of the city outside. I watched him from the corner of my eye. He was staring out the window, his jaw tight, his hands clasped in his lap. There was tension in every line of his body. Who were those men? I finally asked. My family. Your family carries guns and breaks into elevators? His lips twitched, almost a smile. It's complicated. You keep saying that. Because it's true. He turned to look at me, and in the fading light his eyes were almost black. My name is Dante Romano. My family has been in Chicago for 4 generations. We're in the import-export business. Import-export, I repeated. Like what, exactly? Various things. Legitimate things, mostly. But my family has connections, relationships with people who aren't always on the right side of the law. And my uncle Victor, the man you just met, he's trying to take over the business. He wants me out. Why? Because my father died 6 months ago, and he left everything to me. The business, the properties, the responsibilities. Victor thinks he deserves it more. He's older, more experienced, and he's ruthless. He'll do anything to get what he wants, including killing me if necessary. The words dropped like stones into still water. Killing you, I said slowly. Yes. And you want me to pretend to be your wife because Victor can't touch me if I'm married. It's complicated, tied up in old agreements, old rules. My grandfather made certain arrangements before he died, protection clauses. If I'm married, if I have a family, I'm untouchable. Victor knows this. That's why he's been pressuring me to stay single, to focus on business, to not get distracted by relationships. He's been very careful to isolate me. I absorbed this, trying to make sense of it. So you saw him in that building and panicked. I didn't panic. I adapted. He ran a hand over his face, and for the first time he looked tired, almost vulnerable. I've been trying to find a way to protect myself without actually getting married. I don't want to drag someone into this mess into my life. It's too dangerous. But when I saw Victor there, when I realized he'd found me, I knew I had to do something. And then the elevator stopped, and you were there, and I just reacted. You used me. Yes. He didn't apologize, didn't try to make excuses. I used you, and I'm not proud of it, but I'm in a desperate situation, Sarah. Victor won't stop until I'm dead, or he has control of everything my father built, and I can't let that happen. I owe it to my father's memory. I owe it to the people who depend on me. The car turned onto a tree-lined street, the buildings getting taller, more expensive. We were in one of the wealthy neighborhoods now, where the apartments had doormen and the restaurants had dress codes, a world I'd never been part of. Where are we going? I asked. My apartment. I have a place in the Gold Coast area. It's secure. We can talk there without worrying about being overheard or followed. I don't know if that's a good idea. I understand. But please just give me an hour, let me explain properly, and then if you want to leave, if you want nothing to do with any of this, I'll have Marcus drive you home and you'll never see me again. I promise. An hour. 1 hour of my life to hear this man's story, to understand what I just stumbled into. It seemed like a small price to pay for the way my heart was still racing, for the adrenaline still pumping through my veins, for the memory of that kiss that had burned through every defense I'd ever built. 1 hour? I agreed. The car pulled up in front of a high-rise building, all gleaming glass and polished marble. A doorman hurried over to open my door. I stepped out onto the sidewalk, feeling completely out of place in my cheap work clothes and worn shoes. Dante came around, placing his hand on the small of my back, and guided me through the ornate entrance. The lobby was like something out of a magazine. Crystal chandeliers, marble floors, fresh flowers in massive vases. We crossed to the elevators, and I felt my stomach clench at the thought of getting into another one. Dante must have noticed because his hand pressed more firmly against my back, reassuring. It's okay, he said softly. These work perfectly, and I'm right here. We rode up to the 32nd floor in silence. When the doors opened, we stepped out into a private foyer. There was only one door, a massive dark wood panel with an electronic lock. Dante pressed his thumb to a scanner, and the lock clicked open. The apartment was enormous. Floor-to-ceiling windows looked out over the city, the lights just starting to twinkle as darkness fell. Hardwood floors, expensive furniture, abstract art on the walls. It was beautiful and cold and impersonal, like a hotel suite designed by someone who'd never actually lived there. Can I get you something to drink? Dante asked, shrugging out of his jacket and draping it over the back of a leather couch. Water, coffee, wine? Water would be good. He disappeared into the kitchen, and I heard the sound of a refrigerator opening, glasses clinking. I walked over to the windows, looking out at the city spread below me. All those lights, all those people living their lives, completely unaware that I was standing here in a strange man's apartment after lying to what might have been the Mafia. The Mafia. Was that what this was? I thought about the movies I'd seen, the stories I'd heard. This couldn't be real. This kind of thing didn't happen to people like me. Dante returned with 2 glasses of water, handing me one. I took it gratefully, realizing I was desperately thirsty. I drank half of it in one long swallow. Thank you, I said. You're welcome. He gestured to the couch. Please sit. Let's talk. I sat, perching on the edge of the cushion, ready to bolt if I needed to. Dante sat in the chair across from me, leaning forward, his elbows on his knees, his hands clasped. He looked at me for a long moment, and I saw something in his expression that made my chest tighten. He looked lost. He looked alone. I don't know where to start, he admitted. Start at the beginning. So he did. He told me about his father, Antonio Romano, who had come to America from Sicily when he was 20 years old, with nothing but a suitcase and a dream. How Antonio had worked his way up, started businesses, made connections, built an empire. How he'd married Dante's mother, Maria, and had 2 sons, Dante and his younger brother, Marco. Marco died when I was 17. Dante said, his voice going flat. Car accident. At least that's what they called it. But it wasn't an accident. It was Victor. He was already trying to position himself, already making moves. Marco was in the way. I'm sorry, I whispered. My mother never recovered. She died 2 years later. Heart attack, the doctor said. But I think she died of grief. She just gave up. He took a drink of water, his hand shaking slightly. My father changed after that. He became harder, colder. He threw himself into work, into building more, acquiring more. I think he was trying to create something so big, so powerful, that no one could ever hurt us again. And when he died, he left it all to me. Everything, the responsibility, the danger, the legacy. And Victor wants it. Victor has always wanted it. He's my father's younger brother. He's spent his whole life in Antonio's shadow, always second best, always overlooked. And now he sees his chance. He's been systematically undermining me, turning people against me, creating situations where I look weak or incompetent. And if I die, if something happens to me, the business goes to him. It's in my father's will. Can't you just give it to him? If it's that dangerous, if he wants it that badly, why not just walk away? Dante looked at me with something like surprise, as if that had never occurred to him, because it's not mine to give away, it's my father's legacy, it's everything he worked for, everything he sacrificed. And there are people who depend on me, employees, families, communities. If Victor takes over, he'll destroy it all. He'll turn it into something ugly and criminal. My father worked so hard to legitimize our business, to separate us from the old ways. Victor will undo all of that. He stood up, walking to the window, staring out at the city. I watched his silhouette against the lights, this tall, powerful man who seemed to carry the weight of the world on his shoulders. I've been trying to find a solution, he continued. I've been working with lawyers, accountants, trying to restructure things so Victor can't touch them, but it's slow and he's getting impatient. Today was the first time he's made a direct move, following me, confronting me. It means he's ready to act. And you think claiming to be married will stop him? For a while. Long enough for me to finish what I started, to secure everything. There's a clause in my grandfather's original charter, a protection for married heirs. It's old-fashioned, tied to traditional Italian family values, but it's binding. If I'm married, if I have a wife, Victor can't challenge my position, not directly. So you need a fake wife? Yes. He turned to face me. I need someone I can trust. Someone who's not connected to my world, who won't have their own agenda. Someone who can play the part convincingly. And you think I can do that? You don't even know me. I know enough. I know you were brave in that elevator. I know you didn't panic or scream or fall apart. I know you trusted me when you had no reason to. And I know you need help. I stiffened. What makes you think I need help? Your clothes are worn? Your shoes have been resoled at least twice. You're thin, too thin, like you're not eating enough. You deliver documents yourself instead of sending them through a courier service, which means your law firm doesn't have the budget or you're too low on the totem pole. You live paycheck to paycheck and you're barely surviving. Am I wrong? Heat flooded my face. Shame and anger mixed together in a toxic cocktail. You have no right. I'm not judging you. I'm stating facts. And I'm offering you a solution. Be my wife, Sarah. Not for real, just on paper, just for show. Stay with me, play the part when necessary, and I'll pay you enough to change your life, enough to never worry about money again. I stared at him, my mind reeling. You're crazy. Probably, but I'm also desperate. And I think you might be too? How much? The words were out before I could stop them, before I could pretend I wasn't considering this insane proposal. $50,000 a month for 6 months. That's $300,000, Sarah. Tax-free, paid in cash. All you have to do is live here, attend some social functions with me, and convince my family that we're in love. $300,000. That was more money than I'd seen in my entire life. That was enough to pay off my student loans, to get a better apartment, to maybe even go back to school, to build a real life instead of just surviving day to day. This is insane, I said again, but my voice was weaker now. I know, but it's also an opportunity for both of us. I need protection. You need money, it's a business arrangement. Business arrangements don't involve kissing. Something flashed across his face, something hot and dangerous. That was necessary for the performance. It won't happen again unless we need to convince someone. And what happens after 6 months? After 6 months, we stage a quiet divorce. You get your money, I get my business secured, and we both walk away. No harm, no foul. People will ask questions. People will want to know where I came from, who I am. We'll create a story, something simple and believable. We met at a charity event 6 months ago, fell in love, got married quickly because when you know, you know. We kept it quiet because I wanted to protect you from the media attention. And your uncle? You don't think he'll investigate me? Of course, he will, but you're clean. You have nothing in your past that would raise red flags. You're perfect, actually. Normal, boring, exactly the kind of woman someone like me would marry if I wanted to settle down. Boring. The word stung more than it should have. Because he was right. I was boring. My life was boring. Wake up, go to work, come home, eat dinner alone, watch television, go to sleep. Repeat. Day after day, year after year, until one day I'd be old and alone and wondering where my life had gone. I need to think about this, I said. Of course. Take all the time you need. But, Sarah, I need an answer soon. Victor isn't going to wait. And if he moves against me, if he succeeds, I'll be dead. And you'll be a witness to whatever story he decides to tell about me. The threat was subtle but clear. I'd already lied to dangerous men. I'd already claimed to be Dante Romano's wife. There was no going back to my ordinary life. Now, Victor would remember me, he'd investigate, and if he found out I'd lied, that I'd helped Dante deceive him, what would happen then? Fear coiled in my stomach, cold and serpentine. How do I know I can trust you? I asked. Dante walked back over to me, kneeling down so we were eye level, up close. I could see the lines around his eyes, the faint scar above his left eyebrow, the shadow of stubble on his jaw. He smelled like cologne and coffee, and something uniquely him. You can't, he said honestly. You have no reason to trust me. I'm asking you to take a leap of faith, to believe that I'm not like my uncle, that I'm not a monster, and all I can offer you in return is my word. I won't hurt you, I won't let anyone else hurt you, and I'll pay you everything I promised, down to the last dollar. That's all I can give you. His eyes were so dark, so intense. I felt like I was drowning in them, And maybe that's what made me say it. Maybe it was the exhaustion of fighting to survive every single day. Maybe it was the memory of his lips on mine, that brief electric connection that had made me feel alive for the first time in years. Maybe it was just recklessness, a desperate need to do something different, to choose something that wasn't safe and boring and predictable. Okay, I whispered, I'll do it. Relief washed over his face, so profound it was almost painful to witness. Thank you. Thank you, Sarah. You have no idea what this means to me. I think I'm starting to understand. He stood, extending his hand to help me up. I took it, his palm warm and solid against mine, and let him pull me to my feet. We stood there for a moment, too close, the air between us charged with something I didn't want to name. We should go over the details, Dante said, his voice slightly rough. Work out our story, prepare you for what's coming, but first, let me show you your room. He led me down a hallway lined with more abstract art, past several closed doors to a bedroom at the end. It was huge, bigger than my entire apartment, with a king-size bed covered in white linens, matching furniture, and another wall of windows overlooking the city. This will be yours, Dante said. You can change anything you want, redecorate however you like. I'll have someone bring your things from your apartment tomorrow. My things. You'll need to move in. If we're married, we live together, it has to look real. Of course. Of course I'd have to move in with him. This wasn't just playing dress up for a few hours. This was committing to a completely different life, at least for the next 6 months. There's a bathroom through that door, and a closet is walk-in. I'll have some clothes brought over for you tomorrow as well. My assistant can take you shopping once you're settled. You have an assistant? Several. Marcus, who drove us today, he's my security and driver. Elena handles my schedule and correspondence. Teresa is my housekeeper. You'll meet them all soon. His housekeeper, his assistant. This man had staff? I was stepping into a world I knew nothing about. I know this is overwhelming, Dante said gently, but I promise I'll help you through it. We'll take it one step at a time. I nodded, not trusting myself to speak. Get some rest. I'll order dinner. Do you like Italian? I like anything I don't have to cook myself, I said, attempting humor. He smiled, and it transformed his face, made him look younger, almost boyish. Then you're in luck. I know the best Italian restaurant in Chicago, and they deliver. He left, closing the door softly behind him. I stood in the middle of the enormous bedroom, my heart pounding, my mind spinning. What had I just done? What had I just agreed to? I walked to the window, pressing my palms against the cool glass, looking out at the city below. Somewhere down there was my little apartment, my cheap furniture, my lonely life. And here I was, 32 floors up, in a penthouse that cost more than I'd earn in 10 lifetimes, having just agreed to fake marry a man who might or might not be involved with the Mafia. My phone buzzed in my pocket. I pulled it out, seeing a text from Monica at work. You okay? That elevator thing sounded scary. I typed back, I'm fine, just tired. See you tomorrow. But I wouldn't see her tomorrow. I wouldn't be going back to that office, to that job, to that life. Everything was about to change. I sat on the edge of the bed, the mattress so soft it felt like sitting on a cloud, and I let myself feel it. The fear, the excitement, the absolute terror of what I just committed to. And underneath it all, a tiny, barely acknowledged thrill. Because for the first time in my life, something interesting was happening to me. A knock on the door made me jump. Sarah? Dinner's here. I stood, smoothing down my wrinkled blouse, and opened the door. Dante was standing there, his tie loosened, his sleeves rolled up to his elbows, looking more relaxed than he had all day. Come on, let's eat and talk. We have a lot to discuss. The dining room was as impressive as the rest of the apartment, with a long mahogany table that could easily seat 12 people. But Dante had set two places at one end, close together, intimate. White boxes from the restaurant were spread across the table, the smell of garlic and tomatoes and fresh bread making my stomach growl. We sat, and Dante started opening containers. Lasagna, Caesar salad, garlic bread, chicken piccata, eggplant, parmesan, enough food for 6 people. I didn't know what you liked, he said almost sheepishly, so I ordered a bit of everything. I started laughing. I couldn't help it. The absurdity of the situation, the sheer excess of it all, it bubbled up and spilled out. Dante looked at me, surprised, and then he started laughing too, and for a moment we were just two people sharing a ridiculous amount of Italian food on a Tuesday night. This is insane, I said, wiping tears from my eyes. Completely insane, he agreed, but at least we'll eat well while being insane. He dished food onto my plate, generous portions, and then his own. We ate in comfortable silence for a while, and I realized I was starving. I couldn't remember the last time I'd had a real meal, something that didn't come from a can or a microwave. Tell me about yourself, Dante said, setting down his fork. I need to know everything if we're going to convince people we're married. So I told him about Indiana, about my mama, about Tommy Richards and his betrayal, about moving to Chicago and working at the law firm and living alone in a studio apartment where the heat never worked. I told him about the ordinary, boring, painful details of my life, and he listened. Really listened, his dark eyes never leaving my face, his expression attentive and engaged. You've had a hard time, he said, when I finished. Everyone has a hard time. I'm not special. You're wrong. You're very special. You're strong, Sarah, stronger than you know. Most people would have given up a long time ago, but you kept fighting. You kept surviving. That takes courage. The compliment made my throat tight. No one had called me strong before. No one had looked at my struggle and seen anything but failure. What about you? I asked, changing the subject. Tell me about your life. If I'm going to be your wife, I should know more than just the business parts. He leaned back in his chair, considering, what do you want to know? Everything. Your favorite color, your favorite food, what you do for fun, the little things. Blue, he said. My favorite color is blue, like the ocean off the coast of Sicily. My father took me there when I was 10, and I'd never seen anything so beautiful. Favorite food is my mother's carbonara, which I'll never taste again, but I can still remember perfectly. And for fun, he trailed off, looking almost embarrassed. I read history, philosophy, occasionally fiction. I have a library upstairs. You have a library? It's not as impressive as it sounds. Just a room with bookshelves. But yes, I love to read. It's the only time I can turn off my brain, forget about responsibilities and dangers, and just lose myself in someone else's story. I smiled, imagining this dangerous, powerful man curled up with a book. What are you reading now? Marcus Aurelius' Meditations. Do you know it? I shook my head. It's about Stoic philosophy, about accepting what you can't control and focusing on what you can, about finding peace in chaos. He looked at me intently. I'll lend it to you if you want. I'd like that. We talked for hours about books and movies and music, about childhood memories and dreams for the future, about everything and nothing. And slowly, gradually, I felt the fear start to ease. Dante was still a stranger, still a dangerous man with a gun, and enemies who wanted him dead, but he was also just a person, lonely, burdened, trying his best to do right by the people who depended on him. By the time we finished eating, it was past 11. I was exhausted, emotionally drained, barely able to keep my eyes open. You should get some sleep, Dante said, standing and starting to clear the table. Let me help. No, you're my guest. Go rest. Tomorrow will be a busy day. We'll need to get your things, introduce you to the staff, start building our story. I stood, swaying slightly. Dante was instantly at my side, his hand steadying me. Are you okay? Just tired. It's been a long day. The longest. He walked me to my bedroom door, his hand still on my elbow. If you need anything during the night, my room is 2 doors down. Don't hesitate. Thank you. For dinner. For everything. Thank you, Sarah, for taking a chance on me, for trusting me. I won't let you down. I promise. He was standing so close, close enough that I could see the gold flecks in his dark eyes, the way his jaw clenched, the slight hitch in his breathing. For a moment, I thought he might kiss me again, wanted him to kiss me again, but he stepped back, putting distance between us. Good night, he said softly. Good night. I went into the bedroom and closed the door, leaning against it, my heart pounding. Through the wood, I could hear his footsteps moving away, the sound of running water as he cleaned up the kitchen. I walked to the bathroom, a marble palace with a shower big enough for 4 people and a bathtub that looked like it belonged in a spa. I washed my face, staring at myself in the mirror. Same brown eyes, same average features, same messy hair, but something was different. There was color in my cheeks, a brightness in my eyes that hadn't been there this morning. I changed into the spare clothes I'd found in the bathroom, a soft robe that probably cost more than my entire wardrobe, and climbed into the enormous bed. The sheets were like silk, cool and smooth against my skin. I turned off the light and lay there in the darkness, listening to the faint sounds of the city outside, the occasional car horn, the distant wail of a siren. I thought about my apartment, about the life I'd left behind. I thought about Mr. Henderson and Monica and the familiar routine of my days. I thought about my mama, what she would say if she could see me now. Would she be proud? Would she be terrified? Would she tell me I was making the biggest mistake of my life? I thought about Dante, about his dark eyes and his sad smile and the way he looked at me like I mattered, like I was important. And I thought about that kiss, the desperation in it, the heat, the way it had made every nerve in my body come alive. He'd said it wouldn't happen again unless necessary. Part of me hoped it would be necessary soon. I closed my eyes, and despite everything, I fell asleep almost immediately, exhausted and overwhelmed and strangely, impossibly hopeful. I dreamed about elevators and darkness and strong hands pulling me close. I woke to sunlight streaming through the windows, bright and warm and disorienting. For a moment, I didn't know where I was. The bed was too soft, the room too big, the silence too complete. Then it all came rushing back. The elevator, Victor, Dante, the agreement. I sat up, panic fluttering in my chest. What time was it? I grabbed my phone from the nightstand, 8:30. I was supposed to be at work by 9. I'd never called in sick, never missed a day. But I wasn't going to work. Not today. Not ever again, at least not at Henderson Law. I threw off the covers and padded to the bathroom, splashing cold water on my face. In the bright morning light, the events of yesterday felt surreal, like something I'd imagined. But no, I was really here in Dante Romano's apartment, having agreed to be his fake wife for $300,000. I found my clothes from yesterday neatly folded on a chair, my shoes placed beneath. Someone had been in the room while I slept, tidying up, leaving fresh towels in the bathroom. The thought of strangers coming in while I was unconscious made me uneasy. I got dressed quickly and ventured out of the bedroom. The apartment was quiet, but I could smell coffee, rich and strong. I followed the scent to the kitchen, a massive space with granite countertops and stainless steel appliances and more cabinets than one person could ever need. Dante was standing at the counter, fully dressed in another expensive suit, this one charcoal gray. He was reading something on his tablet, a cup of coffee in his other hand. He looked up when I entered and smiled. Good morning. Did you sleep well? Better than I expected. I wrapped my arms around myself, suddenly feeling vulnerable in my wrinkled work clothes. Is that coffee? Help yourself. Cups are in the cabinet to your left, cream and sugar on the counter. I poured myself a cup, adding a generous amount of cream, and took a grateful sip. It was good, better than anything I'd ever made in my cheap coffee maker. I called your office this morning, Dante said, spoke to Mr. Henderson, told him you were resigning effective immediately due to personal reasons. He wasn't happy, but I offered to pay out your remaining vacation days and 2 weeks severance. He accepted. I stared at him. You called my boss? I thought it would be easier than trying to explain. I hope you don't mind. I should have been angry. He had overstepped, made decisions about my life without consulting me. But mostly I just felt relief. I didn't have to go back there, didn't have to face Mr. Henderson's questions, didn't have to pretend everything was normal. What did you tell him? That you'd met someone and were getting married and moving. That you needed to focus on your personal life. He congratulated you, actually, said he hoped you'd be very happy. He said that? Sounded genuinely pleased. I think he liked you, Sarah. Maybe he had. I'd never really thought about it, too focused on just getting through each day to consider whether my boss liked me or not. Marcus is going to take you to your apartment today to pack up your things, Dante continued. We'll bring everything here. Is there furniture you want to keep? Not really. It all came with the place. I just have clothes, some books, a few personal items. Then it should be quick. Elena will meet you there to help. She's my assistant. You'll like her. You've already arranged everything. I'm efficient. He set down his coffee cup. Listen, I know this is moving fast. I know you're probably overwhelmed. But we need to establish our story quickly before Victor starts digging. The sooner we look like a normal married couple, the safer we'll be. What's our story? We met 6 months ago at a charity gala. You were there with someone from your law firm. I was there representing my company. We started talking, hit it off, exchanged numbers. We dated quietly for 3 months. Then I proposed during a weekend trip to New York. We got married in a small ceremony with just a justice of the peace. Wanted to keep it intimate. We've been living together for the past 2 months, but I've kept you out of the spotlight to protect you. It sounded plausible, detailed enough to be believable, simple enough to remember. What about my family? Won't people want to meet them? Your mother passed away, your father's not in the picture, you don't have siblings, it's just you. That actually works in our favor. Less complicated. He thought of everything. It should have made me feel better, but instead it made me nervous. This man was used to manipulating situations, creating narratives, controlling outcomes. What happened when I stopped being useful? When the 6 months were up and he didn't need me anymore? You're thinking too much, Dante said, reading my expression. I can see it on your face. You're worried. Of course I'm worried. This is crazy. Yes, it is. But we're in it now. And I meant what I said last night. I'll protect you. You're under my protection now, Sarah. No one will hurt you. The words should have sounded arrogant, presumptuous, but coming from him they felt like a vow. I should get going, I said. Pack up my stuff. Marcus is waiting downstairs. Take your time. And Sarah, thank you. Again. I know I keep saying it, but I mean it. I nodded, not trusting my voice, and left the kitchen. Marcus was indeed waiting in the lobby, the same driver from yesterday. He nodded politely when he saw me. Mrs. Romano, he said, and I nearly tripped. Mrs. Romano, that was me now, at least in this strange new world. The drive to my apartment building took 20 minutes, and every block we traveled felt like I was leaving my old life further behind. We pulled up in front of the shabby building, and I felt a wave of embarrassment. This was where I'd been living, this rundown building with the broken buzzers and the graffiti on the walls. If Marcus noticed, he didn't comment, just opened my door and waited while I got out. A woman was waiting on the sidewalk, tall and elegant in a cream-colored coat and designer sunglasses. She smiled when she saw me, extending a perfectly manicured hand. Sarah, I'm Elena Torres, Mr. Romano's assistant. I'm here to help however I can. Her handshake was firm, professional. She looked like she belonged in a boardroom or a fashion magazine, not standing outside my crappy apartment building. Thank you for coming, I said. Of course. Shall we? We went inside, climbing the 3 flights of stairs to my studio apartment. The hallway smelled like old cooking and mildew, familiar and depressing. I unlocked my door and we stepped inside. It looked even worse than I remembered. The cramped space, the stained carpet, the furniture that had been ancient when I moved in 5 years ago. My few possessions scattered around like evidence of a life half-lived. This won't take long, I said, suddenly desperate to be done with this, to close this chapter and never think about it again. Elena smiled kindly. Take your time, I'll help. We worked in silence, packing my clothes into the suitcases I'd bought at a thrift store, wrapping my few dishes in newspaper, boxing up the books that were my most prized possessions. The personal items fit into 2 small boxes, photos of my mama, the quilt she'd made me when I was 16, a handful of cards and letters I couldn't bring myself to throw away. Is this everything? Elena asked, looking around the nearly empty apartment. That's it, my whole life in 3 boxes and 2 suitcases. She looked at me with something like pity, then covered it with bright smiles. Well, you're starting fresh now. New apartment, new life. How exciting. Exciting. Sure, that's one word for it. Marcus carried everything down to the car while I went to find my landlord, paid the early termination fee on my lease, and officially gave notice. He barely looked at me, just took my money and grunted acknowledgement. I looked back at the building one last time as Marcus pulled away from the curb. 5 years I'd lived there, 5 years of struggling and surviving and hoping things would get better. And now I was leaving, walking away like it had never mattered. Maybe it hadn't. Back at Dante's apartment, Elena helped me unpack. She hung my clothes in the enormous walk-in closet, where they took up maybe 5% of the available space. She arranged my books on the built-in shelves, placed the photos of my mama on the dresser. The personal items looked lost in the big room, like drops of water in an ocean. We'll go shopping tomorrow, Elena said. You'll need more clothes, especially for the social functions you'll be attending with Mr. Romano. Do you have any preferences? Favorite stores? Styles? I usually shop at Target. She blinked, then smiled. We'll find you some nice things. Don't worry. After she left, I stood in the middle of my new bedroom feeling completely out of place. This wasn't my room. This wasn't my life. I was playing dress up, pretending to be someone I wasn't. A knock on the door frame made me turn. Dante was standing there, his jacket off, his tie loosened. He looked tired. How did it go? Fine. It didn't take long. I didn't have much. He stepped into the room looking at the photos on the dresser. He picked up one of my mama, taken maybe 5 years before she died, when she could still smile without pain shadowing her eyes. She was beautiful, he said softly. You look like her. People used to say that. I took the photo from him, tracing the edge of the frame. She would have thought this was insane. Me living here pretending to be married to a man I just met. Would she have tried to talk you out of it? Probably. She was practical. She believed in hard work and honesty and doing things the right way. She wouldn't have understood taking shortcuts, even if the shortcut came with $300,000. You miss her. It wasn't a question. Every day, even though she's been gone for 8 years, I still want to call her sometimes, tell her about my day, and then I remember she's not there to answer. Dante set the photo back down carefully. I understand I feel that way about my father, about my mother, about Marco. Some losses never heal, they just become part of who we are. We stood there in the fading afternoon light, 2 people bound together by lies and necessity, sharing the weight of our respective grief. I invited Victor to dinner, Dante said finally. Tomorrow night here he'll want to meet you properly, get to know his new niece. We need to be ready. My stomach dropped. The sooner we do this, the better. We need to prove we're really married, really in love. Otherwise, he'll keep investigating, keep pushing, and if he finds out the truth, he didn't finish the sentence, he didn't need to. What do I need to do? Just be yourself. Be nervous, be overwhelmed. That's natural for someone meeting their husband's family for the first time, especially a family like mine. Hold my hand, lean into me, look at me like you care. Victor will be watching for inconsistencies, for any sign that we're lying. We need to sell this. I'm not a good liar. You don't need to lie. You just need to act like someone in love. Can you do that? Could I? I'd never been in love. Not really. What I'd felt for Tommy Richards had been teenage infatuation, easily broken by the first hint of something better. I didn't know what love looked like, how it felt, how it changed the way you moved and spoke and breathed. I'll try, I said. That's all I ask. He moved toward the door, then paused. We should practice. Practice? Being affectionate, being comfortable with each other. Right now, we're like two strangers, which is what we are. But married people have a ease with each other, a natural intimacy. We need to develop that. How do we practice intimacy? Start small, hold hands. Sit close, get used to touching each other in casual ways. By tomorrow night, it needs to feel natural. He held out his hand. I stared at it for a long moment, then slowly placed mine in his. His fingers closed around mine, warm and strong, and he pulled me gently toward him. Like this, he said quietly, when we're together, you should be close to me, comfortable in my space, like you belong there. I was standing so close I could feel the heat coming off his body, could smell his cologne, could see the faint shadow of stubble on his jaw. My heart was hammering so hard I was sure he could hear it. This is weird, I whispered. I know, but we'll get used to it, trust me. He released my hand and stepped back, and I felt the loss of his warmth like a physical thing. Get some rest, he said. Tomorrow's going to be a long day. After he left, I sat on the bed, holding the hand he'd touched, feeling the lingering warmth of his skin on mine. This was my life now. Touching a stranger, pretending to be his wife, lying to dangerous men who wouldn't hesitate to kill us both if they discovered the truth. What had I done? That night, I barely slept. I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, running through scenarios in my head. What would Victor ask me? What if I said something wrong? What if he saw through us immediately? At some point around 3 in the morning, I gave up on sleep and went to find the library Dante had mentioned. I wandered through the dark apartment, feeling like an intruder until I found a door at the end of another hallway. I opened it carefully. The room was smaller than I expected, cozy almost, with floor-to-ceiling bookshelves on 3 walls and 2 leather chairs positioned near a window. A reading lamp cast a pool of golden light. Thousands of books, their spines creating a mosaic of colors and titles. I found Marcus Aurelius right where I expected it, pulled it from the shelf, and settled into one of the chairs. The leather side beneath me, perfectly broken in. I opened the book to a random page and started reading. The words resonated, echoing in the quiet room. I didn't have power over Victor, over Dante's dangerous family, over any of this, but I had power over how I responded. I could choose to be afraid, or I could choose to be strong. Couldn't sleep. I jumped, the book nearly sliding from my lap. Dante was standing in the doorway, wearing pajama pants and a t-shirt, his hair messed from sleep. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to wake you, I was just... It's fine. I couldn't sleep either. He came into the room, settling into the chair next to mine. How are you finding Marcus Aurelius? Heavy, but good. He makes it sound simple, like you can just choose not to be affected by bad things. That's the idea. The Stoics believed that suffering comes from our judgments about events, not the events themselves. If you can control your mind, you can control your experience. Do you believe that? He was quiet for a moment, staring out the window at the sleeping city. I try to. Most days I fail, but trying helps. We sat in silence, the only sound the occasional car passing on the street below. It should have been awkward, sitting in the dark with this man I barely knew, but it wasn't. It felt almost peaceful. Tell me about Victor, I said. What should I expect tomorrow? Dante's jaw tightened. He'll be charming, that's the first thing you need to know. Victor can be incredibly charming when he wants to be. He'll smile, he'll compliment you, he'll make you feel like he's genuinely happy about our marriage. But don't be fooled. Everything he says, every question he asks, it's all calculated. He's gathering information, looking for weaknesses. What kind of questions? He'll ask how we met, how long we've been together. He'll ask about your family, your background, your interests. He'll try to find inconsistencies in our story, and he'll watch us. Watch how we interact, how comfortable we are with each other. We need to be perfect. Sarah, one mistake, and he'll know something's wrong. The pressure of it settled on my shoulders like a physical weight. What if I mess up? You won't. He reached over, taking my hand. I'll be right there. If you don't know how to answer something, look at me. I'll help. And remember, you're nervous because you're meeting your husband's uncle for the first time. That's natural. Use it. His thumb was tracing circles on the back of my hand, a soothing gesture that made warmth spread through my chest. Dante, can I ask you something? Anything. Yesterday in the elevator when you kissed me, was that really just for show? His hand stilled, the silence stretched between us, taut and charged. When he finally spoke, his voice was rough. I needed to make it believable. Victor's men were watching. If they thought we were lying, if they had any doubt. That's not what I asked. He looked at me then, really looked at me, and I saw something in his eyes that made my breath catch. Something raw and hungry and carefully controlled. No, he said quietly, it wasn't just for show. The admission hung in the air between us. I should have been scared, should have pulled my hand away, put distance between us, remembered that this was a business arrangement and nothing more, but I didn't. Sarah, he said, and there was a warning in his voice. This can't be real. You understand that, right? In 6 months you'll leave. You'll take your money and start a new life, and I'll go back to mine. We can't let this become something it's not. I know. Do you? Because this situation, living together, playing pretend, it can get confusing. It's easy to mistake proximity for connection, convenience for compatibility. I don't want to hurt you. Then don't. He closed his eyes, taking a deep breath. When he opened them again, some of that vulnerability was gone, replaced by the cool control I'd seen in the elevator. We should both try to get some sleep, he said, standing and gently releasing my hand. Tomorrow's going to be difficult. He left, and I sat there in the dark library, my hand still warm from his touch, my heart racing with something that felt dangerously like hope. The next day passed in a blur of preparation. Elena arrived early with a team of stylists. They descended on me like a swarm, armed with clothes and makeup and hair products. I was measured, fitted, primed, and polished until I barely recognized myself in the mirror. The dress Elena had chosen was elegant but understated, a deep burgundy that brought out the color in my cheeks and hugged my curves without being obvious. The shoes were designer, the jewelry borrowed from Elena's own collection. My hair was styled in soft waves, my makeup applied with a professional hand. You look beautiful, Elena said, stepping back to admire her work. Mr. Romano won't be able to take his eyes off you. I looked at my reflection. She was right. I did look beautiful, but I also looked like someone else. Someone polished and put together and confident. Not Sarah Mitchell from a dying town in Indiana. Sarah Romano, wife of a powerful man, comfortable in her skin and her surroundings. I could do this. I could be this person, at least for one night. Dante knocked on my bedroom door at 6:30. When I opened it, I saw his eyes widen, saw the way his gaze traveled down my body and back up, slow and appreciative. Sarah? He breathed. You look incredible. Elena's work, not mine. No, it's you. She just helped you show what was already there. He offered his arm. Ready? No. But let's do it anyway. He smiled, and I felt that flutter in my chest again. We walked together to the dining room where Teresa, the housekeeper, had set a table that looked like something from a magazine. Fine china, crystal glasses, fresh flowers in a silver vase, candles flickering in the dimming light. Teresa outdid herself, Dante murmured. It's beautiful. Victor appreciates the finer things. This will appeal to his sense of aesthetic. The doorbell rang at exactly 7 o'clock, punctual. Of course he would be. Dante squeezed my hand once, then went to answer the door. I heard voices, footsteps, and then Victor appeared in the dining room doorway. He looked different than he had in the building hallway, more polished, more refined. He was wearing an expensive suit, his silver hair perfectly styled, his cold blue eyes assessing everything. Behind him were two of his men, silent and imposing. Uncle Victor, Dante said, his hand finding mine and lacing our fingers together. Thank you for coming. Wouldn't miss it. Victor's gaze locked on me, and I felt like a butterfly pinned to a board. And this must be the lovely bride. Sarah, was it? Yes, sir. My voice came out steady. Good. It's nice to meet you properly. The pleasure is mine. He crossed the room, taking my free hand and bringing it to his lips. The gesture was old-fashioned, courtly, but his touch made my skin crawl. Welcome to the family, my dear. Dante's kept you quite hidden. We were beginning to think he'd never settled down. I prefer to keep my personal life private, Dante said, his arm slipping around my waist, pulling me close against his side. Sarah's special. I didn't want her exposed to all the attention and scrutiny that comes with my position. How gallant. Victor released my hand. And how did you two meet? Dante mentioned a charity gala. Yes, sir, I said, leaning into Dante like we'd practiced. It was the Children's Hospital benefit in April. I was there with my boss from the law firm where I worked. Dante and I ended up next to each other in the auction line, and we just started talking. What were you bidding on? The question came fast, designed to catch me off guard. But Dante had prepared me for this. We'd spent hours this afternoon going over every detail of our fabricated first meeting. A weekend in Door County, I said I didn't win. Dante got it instead and then donated the trip back to the hospital for another fundraiser. It was very generous. Sounds like him. Always generous with his money. There was an edge to Victor's voice. And you work at a law firm? I did, Henderson Law. But I resigned after Dante and I got married. He wanted me to be able to focus on our life together. How modern. Or perhaps traditional. It's hard to tell these days. He turned to Dante. You didn't think to invite family to the wedding? It was spur of the moment, Dante said smoothly. We flew to New York for a weekend and just decided to do it. Justice of the peace, very simple. We're planning a bigger celebration later when things are more settled. I see. And Sarah, you don't have family who would have wanted to be there? There was the knife slipped between my ribs with surgical precision. I felt Dante's arm tighten around me, offering silent support. My mother passed away 8 years ago, I said, keeping my voice steady despite the old pain. My father hasn't been in my life since I was a child. There's no one else. So it was just the two of us, which felt right. Something flickered in Victor's eyes, satisfaction, disappointment that I'd had a ready answer. I'm sorry for your loss. Losing a mother is hard. I lost mine 30 years ago and I still miss her. It was the first genuine thing he'd said, and it surprised me. Maybe underneath all that cold calculation, there was a real person. Shall we eat? Dante suggested. Teresa's prepared something special. Dinner was an ordeal, course after course of beautiful food that tasted like sawdust in my mouth. Victor asked question after question, probing, testing, looking for any crack in our armor. What did Sarah like to do for fun? Where did she grow up? What were her interests, her dreams, her plans for the future? Dante fielded many of them, his hand frequently finding mine on the table, our shoulders touching, our legs pressed together under the table. To anyone watching, we looked like a couple completely in love, unable to keep from touching, finding any excuse for contact. And maybe that's why it felt so real. Because Dante played his part perfectly, looking at me with warmth in his dark eyes, smiling at my answers, finishing my sentences when I hesitated. He made it easy to pretend. You seem very happy, Victor observed over dessert, his gaze flicking between us. It's nice to see. Dante's been alone too long. It's not healthy. Being solitary. A man needs family, needs connections. I agree, Dante said. Sarah's changed everything for me. Made me realize there's more to life than just work. Love will do that. Victor set down his fork, dabbing his mouth with his napkin. So when can we expect to hear about grandchildren? I'm sure your father would have wanted the family line to continue. The question was a trap. I could feel it. Eventually, Dante said carefully, we're still newlyweds. We want to enjoy this time together before adding more complications. Of course, of course. I'm just eager to see the family grow. You're the last of the Romanos, Dante. That's a heavy burden. The reminder was intentional. You're the last. If you die, the name dies with you. I'm aware, Uncle, that Sarah and I will build our family in our own time. The tension at the table was thick enough to cut. I reached for my wine glass, my hand shaking slightly, and Dante covered it with his own, steadying me. It's okay, Amor, he murmured, using an endearment that made my heart skip. We don't have to discuss this now. I looked at him, at the warmth in his eyes, at the way he was looking at me like I was precious, and something shifted in my chest. This wasn't just an act anymore, or maybe it had never been just an act. Maybe that kiss in the elevator had started something neither of us had intended. You really do love her, Victor said, and there was something almost like surprise in his voice. I wasn't sure, but I see it now, the way you look at her, like she's the only person in the room. Dante's thumb traced my knuckles, a gesture so tender it made my throat tight. She is the only person in the room, he said quietly. She's the only person who matters. The words hung in the air, and I couldn't tell if he was still acting or if something true had slipped out. His eyes held mine, and I couldn't look away, couldn't breathe, couldn't think. Victor cleared his throat, breaking the moment. Well, I should be going. Thank you for the lovely dinner. Sarah, it was a pleasure to meet you. I look forward to getting to know you better. Thank you, sir. I'm glad we could do this. Dante walked Victor to the door, their voices low and indistinct. I sat at the table, my heart pounding, trying to process what had just happened. We'd done it. We'd convinced Victor. He'd believed us. But somewhere in the middle of pretending, something had become real, at least for me. Dante returned a few minutes later, his shoulders sagging with relief. He bought it? He actually bought it? Are you sure? Yes. I could see it in his face. He's suspicious by nature, but he believed us. We did it, Sarah. We convinced him. He pulled me up from my chair, and suddenly we were standing very close, his hands on my waist, my hands resting on his chest. I could feel his heart beating fast and strong. You were perfect, he said. Everything he asked, every question, you handled it perfectly. I couldn't have done this without you. I was terrified. You didn't show it. You were confident, natural. You made it believable. So did you? I looked up at him, at his dark eyes and strong jaw and lips that I remembered too well. That thing you said about me being the only person who matters. That was a nice touch. Was it a touch? His voice was rough? Or was it the truth? My breath caught. I know what I said. I know this is supposed to be pretend, but Sarah being around you, touching you, looking at you, it's getting harder to remember what's real and what's performance. Maybe we should go back to remembering, I whispered, even as every part of me was screaming to close the distance between us, to taste him again, to see if that kiss in the elevator had been as world-changing as I remembered. You're right. But he didn't let me go, didn't step back, just stood there, his hands warm through the thin fabric of my dress, his eyes searching mine. You should get some rest. It's been a long day. So should you? I will, in a minute. But neither of us moved. We just stood there in the dining room, the candles guttering, the night pressing against the windows, two people caught in a lie that was becoming more true with every passing moment. Finally, reluctantly, he released me. Good night, Sarah. Good night. I went to my room and closed the door, leaning against it, my heart racing. This was dangerous. This was complicated. This was everything I'd agreed not to let happen. But it was happening anyway, and I didn't know how to stop it. The next week passed in a strange sort of domestic routine, and Dante went to work each day, disappearing into his office or leaving the apartment for meetings. I stayed home working with Elena to build my new wardrobe, learning the rhythms of this new life. We ate dinner together every night. Sometimes Teresa cooked, sometimes we ordered in. We talked about everything and nothing. He told me stories about growing up in Chicago, about his brother Marco, about the mother he'd lost too young. I told him about Indiana, about my mama's strength, about the small town I'd left behind. And slowly, carefully, we practiced being married. Casual touches that became natural, sitting close on the couch, his arm around my shoulders, my hand in his, learning each other's rhythms, each other's spaces. It felt like dating, almost, except we were living together, sleeping in rooms just down the hall from each other, waking up to coffee already brewed and good morning smiles. We have an event next Saturday. Dante mentioned one evening over pasta, a charity auction, black tie. Victor will be there, along with most of Chicago's elite. We need to make an appearance, show the world that we're happily married. Okay, what do I need to do? Just be yourself, hold my hand, smile, let me introduce you around. Elena will find you something appropriate to wear. Another dress shopping trip? I'm afraid so. Elena's loving this, by the way. She said it's the most fun she's had in years. I smiled, despite my nerves. Elena had been wonderful, patient, and kind, treating me like a friend rather than an obligation. Dante, can I ask you something? Always. Do you ever regret this? Bringing me into your life, dragging me into your family drama? He set down his fork, considering the question seriously. In sometimes I regret putting you in danger, but regret bringing you here, no. You've made this place feel different, less empty, more like a home. It's not a home, it's a mausoleum, beautiful and expensive and cold. He blinked, surprised. That's harsh. It's true. There's nothing personal here. No photos, no memories, no warmth. It's like a hotel suite designed to impress people but not to be lived in. I never thought about it that way. You should. If we're supposed to convince people we live here together that we're building a life here, maybe we should make it look like someone actually lives here. Something sparked in his eyes. Interest, maybe? Or challenge. What would you do differently? I don't know. Add some color? Some personality? The only room in this entire place that feels lived in is your library, because it's filled with things you actually care about. The rest is just empty. He leaned back in his chair, studying me. You really see things clearly, don't you? Cut right through the bullshit. I don't have the luxury of pretending. I never have. No, you haven't. He stood, holding out his hand. Come with me. I took his hand, confused, and let him lead me through the apartment to his bedroom. I'd never been in there, had respected the boundary. The room was masculine, done in shades of gray and blue, with a massive bed and more floor-to-ceiling windows. But like the rest of the apartment, it was impersonal, perfect and cold. Dante opened his closet, disappearing inside for a moment. When he emerged, he was carrying a box. He set it on the bed and opened it carefully. Inside were photos, dozens of them, some framed, some loose, a woman with warm eyes and dark hair, a young man with Dante's smile, an older man with kind eyes and strong hands, a family. This is my mother, Dante said, picking up one of the framed photos. Maria. This was taken a year before she died. She was laughing because my father had just tried to dance and fell over his own feet. He was terrible at dancing, but he did it anyway because it made her happy. He handed me the photo and I looked at the woman's face. She was beautiful, yes, but more than that, she looked alive, joyful. And this is Marco. Another photo, two boys with their arms around each other, grinning at the camera. I was 15 here, he was 12. We'd just won our first soccer championship. He was so proud, kept that trophy on his dresser until the day he died. His voice cracked slightly, and without thinking, I reached out and took his hand. And this is my father, Antonio, a distinguished older man in a suit looking at the camera with serious eyes. This was taken the year before he died. He looked tired, didn't he? I didn't see it then, but I see it now. He was carrying so much weight. Why do you keep them hidden? I asked gently. Because it hurts to look at them. Because every time I see their faces, I'm reminded that they're gone, and I'm here alone, trying to protect a legacy I'm not sure I'm strong enough to carry. I set down the photo I was holding and turned to face him fully. You're strong enough. You've been strong enough this whole time, and you're not alone. Not anymore. His eyes met mine, and I saw that vulnerability again, that crack in his carefully maintained armor. Sarah, I know what you're going to say. This isn't real. This is temporary. In 6 months, I'll be gone. But right now, in this moment, you're not alone. I'm here, and maybe we can take these photos out of this box and put them where you can see them, where they can make this place feel like a home instead of a mausoleum. He was quiet for a long time, just looking at me. Then, slowly, he nodded. We spent the rest of the evening placing photos around the apartment, his mother on the mantel in the living room, his father in the library, Marco in the hallway, family photos scattered throughout, adding life and memory to the sterile perfection. When we were done, the apartment looked different, still beautiful, still elegant, but warmer somehow, more real. Thank you, Dante said, standing in the living room looking at his mother's photo. I didn't realize how much I needed this. Everyone needs to remember they're loved, even after the people who loved them are gone. He turned to me, and there was something in his expression that made my breath catch. You're remarkable, you know that. You see things other people miss. You care in ways that most people have forgotten how to care. I'm not remarkable, I'm just human. Exactly. He crossed the room to me, stopping so close I had to tilt my head back to meet his eyes. You're human in a world full of people pretending to be something else. It's refreshing, it's rare, it's... He stopped, seeming to struggle with words. It's what? I prompted, barely breathing. It's making me want things I shouldn't want. His hand came up to cup my face, his thumb brushing my cheekbone in a gesture that was becoming familiar, intimate. Dante, what are we doing? I don't know. His voice was rough. I told myself I could keep this professional, keep you at a distance, but every day it gets harder. Every time I touch you, every time you smile at me, every time we sit together and talk like we've known each other forever instead of just days, it's all making me forget this is supposed to end. Maybe it doesn't have to end. The words were out before I could stop them. Reckless, dangerous, true. His eyes darkened. Sarah, I know what we agreed. I know this was supposed to be business, but you feel it too, don't you? This thing between us, this connection, tell me I'm not imagining it. You're not imagining it? He rested his forehead against mine, both of us breathing hard. But that doesn't mean we should act on it. I'm dangerous, Sarah. My life is dangerous. Being with me, really being with me, means accepting that danger. Accepting that Victor and people like him will always be a threat. Is that really what you want? I thought about my old life, my safe, boring, lonely life, waking up in that cold apartment, going to a job that didn't fulfill me, coming home to silence, no one to talk to, no one to care about, no one to care about me. Safe, yes, but what good was safety if you were dead inside? Yes, I said, that's what I want. He made a sound, half groan, half laugh, and then his lips were on mine. Not desperate like in the elevator, but slow, thorough, claiming. His hands tangled in my hair, angling my head for better access, and I pressed closer, my hands fisting in his shirt. This kiss was different. This kiss was real. When we finally broke apart, both of us were shaking. This complicates everything, Dante breathed. I know. Victor will use you against me if he finds out you matter. Really matter. Then we don't let him find out, we keep pretending this is business, but between us, we can be honest. He searched my face, looking for doubt, for hesitation. Are you sure? Once we cross this line, there's no going back. I thought about all the times in my life I'd played it safe, all the risks I hadn't taken, all the chances I'd missed, all the times fear had held me back from actually living. Not anymore. I'm sure. He kissed me again, and this time there was no holding back. His hands were everywhere, learning the shape of me, and mine were doing the same. We stumbled backward toward his bedroom, shedding clothes along the way until we were tumbling onto his bed in a tangle of limbs and desperate touches. Sarah, he breathed against my skin. Are you sure? Yes. God, yes. And then there were no more words, just sensation and connection and the overwhelming feeling of finally being seen, being wanted, being chosen. Afterward, we lay tangled in his sheets, my head on his chest, his fingers tracing lazy patterns on my shoulder. Outside the windows, the city glittered, oblivious to the fact that something fundamental had just shifted. No going back, Dante said quietly. No going back. I agreed. He pulled me closer, pressing a kiss to the top of my head. Then we go forward together. Together. I fell asleep like that, wrapped in his arms, feeling safer and more content than I had in years, maybe ever. And if somewhere in the back of my mind a voice whispered that this couldn't last, that we were playing with fire, that Victor would find out and destroy us both, I ignored it. For once in my life, I was choosing something for me, something that made me happy. Consequences be damned. I would worry about the cost later. The days that followed blurred together in a haze of happiness I'd never experienced before. Dante and I stopped pretending. At least when we were alone, we were still careful in public, still maintained the facade of a convenient arrangement for anyone watching. But behind closed doors, we were just two people falling deeper into something neither of us had planned. He started sleeping in my room, or I in his. It didn't really matter, we just couldn't seem to be apart. We'd lie awake talking until the early morning hours, sharing secrets and dreams and fears. He told me about the pressure of running his father's business, the constant weight of responsibility. I told him about the loneliness of my life before, the feeling of being invisible. You could never be invisible, he said one night, his hand playing with my hair. You light up every room you walk into. That's not true. It is to me. The charity auction arrived on Saturday night. Elena had found me a dress that was stunning, all black silk and elegant lines, with a neckline that was daring without being inappropriate. diamonds at my throat and ears borrowed from a collection I didn't want to know the value of. Dante wore a tuxedo that made him look like he'd stepped out of a classic film. When he saw me, his eyes went dark with appreciation. "You're going to be the most beautiful woman there," he said. "You have to say that. You're my husband." Fake husband. Not so fake anymore. He smiled, pulling me close for a kiss that threatened to make us late. No, not so fake. The event was at the Art Institute, the grand hall transformed into a glittering wonderland. Hundreds of Chicago's wealthy and powerful, all dressed to impress, all drinking champagne and pretending their lives were perfect. Dante kept me close, his hand possessive on my lower back, his arm around my waist. He introduced me to dozens of people, business associates and family friends and distant relatives. I smiled and shook hands and played the part of the happy newlywed. And it wasn't even hard, because I was happy, genuinely, truly happy. Victor was there, of course. I saw him across the room watching us with those cold blue eyes, but when he approached, his smile was pleasant. "Dante, Sarah, how lovely you both look." "Uncle, thank you, you're looking well." "I'm feeling well. Business has been good." His gaze shifted to me. "And how are you adjusting to married life, my dear?" "It's wonderful," I said, leaning into Dante. "Better than I could have imagined." "I'm glad to hear it. You've brought some life to my nephew. He's been too serious for too long." "She has a gift for that," Dante said, looking down at me with warmth that didn't need to be faked. We made small talk for a few minutes, and then Victor excused himself, moving on to other conversations, but I felt his eyes on us throughout the night, watching, assessing. "He's still suspicious," I murmured to Dante when we were alone for a moment. "He'll always be suspicious, it's his nature, but we've given him nothing to work with, he can't prove anything. What if he tries something anyway? What if being suspicious is enough?" Dante's arm tightened around me. "Then I'll protect you, that's a promise, Sarah. Whatever happens, I'll keep you safe." I wanted to believe him. God, how I wanted to believe him. The auction started and we bid on a few items. A vacation package to Italy that Dante won with a casual raise of his paddle that made my stomach flutter. He leaned close, his breath warm against my ear. "I thought we could use a honeymoon. A real one. We can't just leave. What about Victor? What about the business? We can for a week. We'll go somewhere beautiful, somewhere far away from Chicago and all of this. Just you and me. Would you like that?" Would I like to spend a week in Italy with a man I was falling in love with? Yes, yes, I would. I'd love that. He kissed my temple, a gesture so tender it made my chest ache. Around us, people smiled indulgently at the newlyweds so clearly in love. If only they knew the truth, that this had started as a lie, that I'd agreed to fake marry this man for money, that somewhere along the way the fake had become real, at least for me. And maybe for him too? I hoped for him too. The evening ended late, and we were both exhausted by the time Marcus drove us home. I kicked off my heels in the elevator, groaning in relief. "Remind me never to wear shoes like that again." "You looked beautiful in them." I looked like I was about to fall over. He laughed, pulling me against him as the elevator rose. "You were perfect. Everyone loved you. They loved the idea of me, Dante Romano's mysterious bride. They don't actually know me. I know you." I looked up at him, at his handsome face and dark eyes. "Do you?" "I'm learning. Every day I learn something new. Like how you always drink your coffee too hot and burn your tongue. How you read the end of books first, because you can't stand the suspense. How you hum when you're cooking, always the same song, something your mother used to sing. How you're stronger than you think you are, braver than you know. How you've changed my life in ways I'm still trying to understand." My throat was tight. Dante? "I'm falling in love with you, Sarah. I didn't plan it. I didn't want it. but it's happening anyway, and I can't seem to stop it. The elevator doors opened on our floor, but neither of us moved. We just stood there staring at each other, the weight of his confession hanging between us. Say something, he said quietly. Please. I'm falling in love with you too. I think I started in that broken elevator when you looked at me like I was the only thing that mattered, and I haven't stopped since. He pulled me close, kissing me like I was air and he was drowning. We barely made it inside the apartment, stumbling through the door, hands everywhere, desperate to be closer. Later, wrapped in his arms, in his bed, I let myself imagine a future, not 6 months, but years. A life with this man, real marriage, real love, real forever. It was a dangerous dream, but I couldn't seem to let it go. The next morning, I woke to an empty bed. For a moment, panic fluttered in my chest. But then I heard voices from the living room, low and urgent. I pulled on a robe and padded quietly down the hall. Dante was standing by the windows, his phone pressed to his ear. His face was grim. When? Are you sure? God damn it. Yes, I'll be there in 20 minutes. No, don't do anything until I get there. He hung up, running a hand through his hair in a gesture I'd come to recognize as stress. What's wrong? I asked. He turned, and I saw the worry in his eyes. That was Marcus. Victor's made a move. He's called an emergency board meeting claiming he has evidence of financial irregularities in the company. He's trying to have me removed as CEO. My blood ran cold. Can he do that? Not easily. But he's going to try, and if he succeeds, if he takes control of the company, he didn't finish the sentence. He didn't need to. What do we do? I need to go. I need to be there, defend myself, make sure the board understands this is just Victor's latest manipulation. But Sarah, I need you to stay here. Don't answer the door. Don't talk to anyone. Marcus is leaving one of his men outside. You'll be safe. I don't want to be safe. I want to be with you. I know, but this is too dangerous. If Victor thinks you're involved, if he has any reason to believe you're more than just a convenient marriage, he'll use you against me. Please, trust me. Stay here. I wanted to argue, wanted to demand to go with him, to face this together, but I could see the fear in his eyes, the genuine terror at the thought of something happening to me. Okay, I said, but call me. Keep me updated. And Dante, be careful. I will. He kissed me hard and fast. I love you. I love you too. He left, and the apartment felt empty without him. Cavernous and cold despite all the photos we'd hung, all the warmth we'd tried to create. I made coffee, tried to eat breakfast, paced the living room like a caged animal. Hours passed. No call, no update. Just silence and my own spiraling thoughts. What if Victor won? What if he took everything? What if he hurt Dante? My phone finally rang at 2 in the afternoon, not Dante, Elena. Sarah, we have a problem. Her voice was tight with stress. What kind of problem? Victor's questioning the marriage. He's hired a private investigator to look into your background, and Sarah, he found something. What? There's nothing to find. I'm exactly who I said I am. Not about your past, about your apartment. The investigator found out that your lease wasn't terminated until the day after you supposedly moved in with Dante, which means you were living in 2 places at once, which doesn't make sense for a woman who'd been married for months. My stomach dropped. Of course. Of course there would be a paper trail. I'd been so careful about the story, about the relationship, about everything else, but I hadn't thought about the timing of my lease. What does this mean? It means Victor has ammunition. Not proof, but enough to raise serious questions. He's demanding a full investigation into the marriage. He wants medical records, financial statements, proof that you and Dante were together before the wedding. We don't have that proof. We can't have it, because it's not real. I know, which is why we need to create it. Backdated documents, receipts, Photos. We need to build a paper trail that proves you were together before you officially moved in. It's going to be expensive and complicated and probably illegal, but it's the only way. Where's Dante? Does he know? He knows. He's the one who told me to call you. He's still in the board meeting, fighting to keep his position. But, Sarah, this is bad. If Victor can prove the marriage is fake, he can claim Dante violated the family charter. That gives him legal standing to challenge Dante's position. This whole thing could fall apart. I sank onto the couch, my hands shaking. What do I need to do? For now, nothing. Stay where you are, stay safe. I'm working on the documentation. But, Sarah, you need to be prepared. This might get ugly. Victor doesn't fight fair. After she hung up, I sat in the silent apartment, watching the sun track across the floor, feeling the walls close in. I'd known this was risky, known we were playing a dangerous game, but somehow I'd let myself believe we could win, that love would be enough. Love was never enough, not in the real world. Dante came home after midnight. I heard the door open, heard his heavy footsteps. He looked exhausted, his tie loose, his jacket gone, his shirt wrinkled. Tell me, I said. He poured himself a drink, something amber and strong, and downed it in one swallow. Victor presented his evidence. The board was skeptical but concerned. They've agreed to an independent investigation into both my personal life and the company finances. If they find anything irregular, I'm out. What about the marriage clause? That's the only thing keeping me in the game right now. But if Victor can prove we're lying, that protection evaporates. And Sarah, he's digging deep. He knows about your lease. He probably knows about the money I paid Henderson Law. He's building a case. So what do we do? He looked at me and I saw defeat in his eyes. Something I'd never seen before. Maybe we stop fighting. Maybe we admit the truth, pay whatever consequences come and walk away. You don't mean that? Don't I? Look at what this is costing. You're in danger. My life's work is on the line. Maybe it's time to accept that I can't win this. I stood, crossing to him, taking his face in my hands. Listen to me. You are not giving up. Not now. Not when we've come this far. Yes, it's hard. Yes, it's dangerous. But we knew that from the beginning. And you know what? I don't care. I'd rather fight and lose than give up without trying. Sarah, I love you, and I don't know if that matters to you, if it changes anything, but it matters to me. You matter to me. This matters. So we're going to fight. We're going to create whatever documentation Elena needs. We're going to tell our story so many times it becomes true. And we're going to beat Victor at his own game. He stared at me, and slowly something rekindled in his eyes. That determination, that strength. You really mean that. Every word. Now stop feeling sorry for yourself and start fighting back. A ghost of a smile? You're bossy when you're being inspirational. Someone has to be. Now, what's the plan? We stayed up until dawn, working with Elena over video call, creating a timeline, gathering evidence, building a story that would hold up under scrutiny. We backdated restaurant receipts, created fake social media posts, even staged photos with metadata that matched our supposed dating timeline. It was exhausting and stressful and possibly criminal, but it was also necessary. By the time the sun rose, we had everything we needed. A complete paper trail showing Sarah Mitchell and Dante Romano had been in a relationship for 6 months before their marriage. It wasn't perfect, but it was good enough to create reasonable doubt. Victor won't be able to prove we're lying, Elena said, looking over the final documents. Not without resources we don't think he has. But, Sarah, this means committing. No second thoughts, no backing out. You're Dante's wife now, for real, at least on paper. Are you okay with that? I looked at Dante, at his tired eyes and rumpled clothes and the hope on his face. Yes, I'm okay with that. After Elena signed off, Dante pulled me into his arms, holding me tight. Thank you for believing in me, for fighting for me. I don't deserve you. You deserve everything good in this world, and I'm going to make sure you get it." We fell asleep on the couch, wrapped around each other, too exhausted to move. And when I woke up hours later, Dante was watching me, his expression soft. "What?" I asked, self-conscious. I was just thinking how different my life was a month ago, how empty, how meaningless, and now there's you. Is that good or bad? It's everything. He kissed me softly. "Thank you for choosing me, Sarah, for choosing this, for choosing us." "Always," I whispered against his lips. "I'll always choose you." The investigation dragged on for weeks. Investigators combed through financial records, interviewed employees, looked for any irregularity that would give Victor ammunition. They questioned us separately and together, asking about our relationship, our timeline, our future plans. We stuck to our story, never wavered, never contradicted each other. We'd practiced so many times it felt like truth. Elena's doctored evidence held. The investigators found our restaurant receipts, our social media posts, our shared financial transactions. Everything pointed to a legitimate relationship that had simply been kept private. Victor pushed back, demanded more investigation, claimed there were inconsistencies, but slowly the board's skepticism shifted. They started to see Victor's accusations for what they were: a desperate grab for power. The final board meeting was scheduled for a Friday in November, cold and gray, the kind of day that matched my mood. Everything would be decided today. Either Dante kept his position or Victor won. We dressed carefully that morning. Dante in his sharpest suit, me in a conservative dress that Elena had chosen. We looked like the power couple we were supposed to be. "Whatever happens today," Dante said as we prepared to leave, "I want you to know that this month with you has been the best of my life, even with all the stress and danger and lies, because underneath it all, you and me, that's real. That will always be real." "We're going to win," I said firmly. I refused to believe any other outcome. The board meeting was in the company headquarters, a massive building downtown. We rode the elevator up, Dante's hand gripping mine so tightly it almost hurt. The boardroom was full, 12 members, all looking serious, plus Victor at one end, looking smug and confident. There were also lawyers, investigators, accountants, everyone with a stake in this decision. The chairman, an older man named Carlson, called the meeting to order. "We're here to review the findings of our investigation and make a final determination regarding the concerns raised by Victor Romano about Dante Romano's fitness to lead this company. Investigators, please present your findings." The lead investigator stood, a stern woman in her 50s. She went through their process methodically: financial audits, employee interviews, background checks, everything they'd examined over the past month. In conclusion, she said finally, "We found no evidence of financial irregularities, no inappropriate use of company resources, and no reason to question Mr. Dante Romano's management of the company. As for the marriage in question, all evidence supports that Mr. Romano and Sarah Mitchell were in an established relationship before their marriage. The relationship appears genuine." I felt Dante's grip on my hand loosen slightly. Relief? We'd done it? The documentation had held? Victor stood abruptly. "This is absurd. You can't seriously believe that." "Sit down, Victor." Carlson's voice was sharp. "We've reviewed the evidence thoroughly. Unless you have something concrete to present, something beyond suspicion and innuendo, this meeting is over. I'm telling you, something's not right. Look at them. They barely know each other. They're married. They're clearly devoted to each other, and Mr. Dante Romano has done nothing but serve this company honorably since taking over from his father. Your accusations are baseless and frankly concerning. One might almost think you're trying to engineer a takeover through false allegations." Victor's face went red. "I am trying to protect this company?" "No. You're trying to seize control. And the board sees that clearly now." Carlson looked around the table. All in favor of dismissing the investigation and reaffirming Dante Romano's position as CEO? 11 hands went up. Everyone except Victor? Motion carried. This investigation is closed, and Mr. Dante Romano continues as CEO with the board's full support. Carlson looked at Victor coldly. And Victor, consider this a warning. If you try something like this again, we'll have to reconsider your position on this board. Are we clear? Victor's face was a mask of fury. He stared at Dante, then at me, and I saw pure hatred in his eyes. This isn't over, he said quietly. Yes, Dante said, standing and pulling me up with him. It is, Uncle. I think it's time you retired. Spent more time with your family, traveled, enjoyed your remaining years. I'll arrange a generous severance package. More than generous, but your time here is done. The threat was veiled but clear. Take the money and go, or face something worse. Victor looked like he wanted to argue, to fight, to do something, but he was outnumbered and outmaneuvered. He'd played his hand and lost. Fine, he bit out. I'll be in touch about the severance. He stormed out, his men following. The room was silent for a long moment. Then Carlson stood, extending his hand to Dante. Congratulations on your marriage, Dante, and congratulations on surviving what I can only imagine was a very stressful month. Your father would be proud. Thank you, sir. We left the building hand in hand, stepping out into the cold November afternoon. The sun was breaking through the clouds, casting everything in golden light. We did it, I breathed. We actually did it. You did it. If it wasn't for you, I would have given up, would have let Victor win. He pulled me close, kissing me right there on the street, not caring who saw. I love you, Sarah. And I want this to be real. Not fake, not pretend. I want you to really be my wife. My heart stuttered. What are you saying? I'm saying let's get married. Hey, for real this time. A real ceremony with real vows and a real future. No more lies, no more pretending, just you and me building a life together. Tears pricked my eyes. You want to marry me? Really marry me? More than anything, so what do you say, Sarah Mitchell? Will you marry me? Again? For real this time? I laughed through my tears, nodding frantically. Yes. God, yes. 1,000 times, yes. He kissed me again, and this time there was no desperation, no fear, no hidden agenda, just love, pure and simple and real. Behind us, the city rushed on, oblivious. But for us, time stopped. This moment, this choice, this love, it was everything. We got married on a Saturday in December in a small chapel overlooking Lake Michigan. Elena and Marcus were our witnesses. No family, no big production, just two people making promises they intended to keep. I wore a simple white dress and carried wildflowers. Dante wore a suit and looked at me like I was the most precious thing in the world. When the officiant asked if I took Dante Romano to be my lawfully wedded husband, I didn't hesitate. I do? And when he asked Dante the same question, his voice was strong and sure. I do. We kissed as husband and wife for real this time, and I knew that whatever came next, whatever challenges we faced, we'd face them together. The elevator stopped. The Mafia boss grabbed my wrist. And somehow, impossibly, I found my way home.